Good morning, friends. Happy Friday. Today I'm going to be working on a belly band with a policy envelope closure, some fun stitching, a bunch of pockets, and then adding some tickets into those pockets today for Junk Journal January Day 3, and the prompt is tickets. So we're going to need a bunch of things to get started if you want to follow along. So I've got out my ink, some glue, I've got a giant glue stick. I love this giant glue stick. It's great because it has so much coverage in one go. A corner rounder, a hole punch, and some papers. I'm going to use some scrapbook paper that I have laying around from card making, and it matches my theme in navy blue, and I've got, it's Christmas themed. So I'm going to cover the inside with a pattern paper to hide the Christmassy elements. I'm going to use, I think, a sparkly pink. We're going to see how I really feel about it, but I tried to use this for card making and it is just way too thick. So I could never get the dies to go all the way through. It involved a bunch of X-Acto knife cutting. It made me miserable. It's no longer going to be used for that. So I'm going to use those to make the policy envelope closure. Of course, I've got a page out of my junk journal. You might recall that I am not inserting mine until I am finished. So here's the page that I'm going to use, and it's really just to measure the belly band to make sure it fits. So I've got that here off to the side. I've got some embroidery floss that came from a gifted bag of bits and bobs from a friend that I'm going to use as that closure. I scoured my entire collection and I had nothing related to tickets. I do have a digital membership to have access to some digital printouts for occasions such as this. Occasionally I just cannot find anything that would fit the bill to match the prompts. So I have gone ahead and printed those and cut them out. And I actually just printed them on kind of my premium copy paper. So it's a lot thinner than cardstock, but it's also thicker than, standard cheap copy paper, which I also keep on hand for printing out labels and such. So I think these are about the right thickness for me. And I'm gonna leave them white on the back and just touch them up with some ink so that they look a little more vintage. But I think they'll make great little spots for journaling, listing things that I'm grateful for in the mornings, etc. So I think that'll be just fine. I also have a hole punch and some brads, and I actually don't know which brads are gonna work. So I'm gonna test these out, and if none of them work, we're gonna wing it, because that's a huge part of junk journaling is just winging it. So I have these brads that I use for card making when I do interactive spin cards and things of that nature. Some bigger, some smaller. Let's see what works. So yeah, those are the supplies. I think there might be more, but it's certainly enough to get started. So let's go ahead and do that. So first things first is I want to measure out my scrapbook paper and make sure that it fits. And so basically the best way I have found to do that is just to take it and wrap it around and then fold it over the top and the bottom. I should measure, I should worry about folding things straight, but I don't. And frankly, that's the fun of junk journal making, is it doesn't have to be perfect, because I don't want to. I do have a bone folder, one more supply, I knew I'd forget something, that I can use to run across these to make the folds just a little more, folded, permanently folded. And I'm gonna have it just go ahead and take up most of this page. I think that's fine. And why? Because it's gonna be easily removable. The policy closure will go here and here, and then I should just be able to flip it off and take it off at any point. And I like the idea of having a lot of real estate for putting those pockets on the back. So I think I'll put a few pockets this way. And not much other than decoration. I'm planning to stitch this along the sides just because I think it would look cute. Why not? And then add a focal point. So at the end of this video, I show the focal point making. A lot of people already know how to do that, and it's not the most interesting, so I've sped it up, but you're welcome to watch that. But basically, I have some fashion ladies that I have stamped onto watercolor paper, just some cheapy watercolor paper out of one of my sketchbooks, and then I went ahead and colored in their clothing using watercolors. And I used a mix of like my standard cheapy watercolors, this lady here, and then I used some of the more fun metallics, like this lady here, just to see, you know, which one I'd like better and how it would go. But you know, the cheapy watercolors, still my favorite, which is often the case. So we'll see if any of these make sense, and if they don't, then they don't. But it might be fun to have one of these fashion ladies on this envelope. Okay, down to business. As I drop things off of my very tiny desk, you're actually seeing nearly the whole of this desk. I have things spread everywhere, so apologies. Working in small spaces presents its own challenges, but hey, we work with whatever we've got. So, okay, so we've now taken our paper, folded it over top of the journal page. So I have a good enough idea of the size of that now. So I'm gonna go ahead and just put this page out of the way so that I don't accidentally glue it or something else. And I really wanna cover this Christmas theme because this is not a Christmas journal. It's just not for me. If you, you know, don't have to cover it, certainly not required, it's just personal preference for me. And I'm going to do this the lazy girl way as well. So I've got pattern instructions here that have already been used for something else. So they've been cut in half previously. I'm gonna just decide kind of what side I think is more interesting. The blue and white's kind of fun, but I tend to like big, bold kind of patterns and shapes. So I'm gonna go with this. And I'm just going to put my card down and then glue it. So super simple. Okay, so I'm gonna put that over to the side here. I'm gonna bust out the giant glue stick and just kind of cover everything up and see how this goes. I'm using a glue stick primarily because the paper's a little thinner. I don't want to deal with bubbling and curling, and I'm gonna be stitching this anyway. So it does not have to be the most secure attachment because honestly, the sewing machine stitching is what I'm gonna use to hold this together. Otherwise, you could just use, you know, like your glitter glue or your Fabri-Tac. I often use a watered down PVA glue mixture, which is 2/3 glue and 1/3 water. I actually just put it in a jar and keep it mixed up. And so it just thins it down, and then I can brush it onto thinner papers. I use that for a lot of collage, and it also works really great for attaching things in my junk journals. So I always have that on hand. And once again, I am gonna make little to no effort to line anything up beyond just kind of slapping it on here, massaging it down so that it sticks and doesn't have too many bubbles, so that when I do stitch it, it's attached well enough that I will be happy with the final results. You can see my small shaking portable table. One of these days, I'm going to replace this craft table, but it has served me well for a few years, and I suspect it will continue to serve me well for a few more years. Okay, so that is now attached, and I'm just using some freezer paper. I actually was making freezer paper reinforced magazine images the other day, and I had these left over, and I was just like, wow, glue doesn't stick to these. Perfect for protecting my craft table a little bit. I also have craft paper on here, which is great for paint, but honestly, once everything gets kind of stuck with glue, it's less exciting. So, not my favorite. Okay, so now I'm just gonna trim around the edges here, best that I can. And again, if it's not perfect, then it's not perfect. I don't care. You could tear this with a ruler if you like, you know, that deckled edge look. But I think for this one, it's gonna have kind of enough going on that I'm not super concerned about it. So I'm just gonna go ahead and trim around fairly straight. At least trying not to cut up my decorative scrapbook paper anyway. So far so good, but I am doing this real time, so who knows? Murphy's Law. Whatever can go wrong will go wrong, so I'm sure at some point during this video I will make mistakes. That's what I do. It's fine. Okay, great. So that's pretty close. And because I used that bone folder to kind of press it down, the folder's still in there, but I'm going to go ahead and run the bone folder over it one more time. And I'm going to let this dry a little before I stitch it because I really don't want to gum up my needles in my machine. And I am doing laundry in the background. I'm so sorry. I hope it's not distracting. Okay, so I do want to ink up the edges though, just because I like the way inking edges looks. But first I'm going to go ahead and clip my corners. I'm sure there is a rhyme or reason to why one might select one corner versus another, but I don't know what that is. So I'm just going to do this one. And sometimes this gives me trouble. Let's hope it doesn't today. Oh, it did. If anybody knows what causes that and has any tips or tricks, I'd love to know it. It's really frustrating when it does happen. It does eventually work out, but it is what it is. I was looking at the corner chomper to see if that would be more sturdy. But I don't know. I haven't really seen it used much in anybody else's videos. If you have a corner chomper or you've used one, you know, I'd love to hear your thoughts on whether it is an improvement. Does it give you more consistent corner rounding? You know, can it go through thicker materials? Because I make a lot of art cards, and to be honest, because they're so thick, this little guy really struggles to get through it. Okay, rounded enough. So now I'm just gonna grab I use the Distress Ink tea dye color. I don't know, I think it's cool. So kind of gives it a vintagey look. If I'm not into the browns, I often will use black, especially on some of my more modern style papers, art journal. But I just think that inking the edges makes it look a little more finished, and it kind of hides some of those imperfections. It's like, especially on my focal points and things of that nature, you know, if I don't cut things really well, or if, you know, there's little frayed edges, sometimes happens, especially when I'm cutting with an X-Acto knife. The black ink hides all. It's great. It's a trick I learned from making cards. Anytime, you know, you do little cutouts, you just add that black ink around the edges. It just kind of pulls it all together and hides any of those imperfections, which is nice. Same on this, you know, I missed a little, but hey, that's just extra cool vintage edging. And thanks to the ink, it blends in and looks, you know, almost like that's how it was, which is the idea. Okay, so now we're all inked up, got it cut. So basically that is the main piece here. I went the larger flap at the top, but it doesn't matter. You could make them even. You could make them overlap. You could make it close all the way. But again, I'm just winging it. And I thought that looked good and fine. So there we go. That's the idea. So the next thing that we need to do is start prepping the policy closure buttons. So a few options here. You can use actual buttons if you want to sew on real buttons. You can use cutouts of scrapbook paper or manila folder. You could just use brads. In my case, I'm going to do a combination of paper cutout and brads. So I'm just going to grab my small circle punch. What size is this? I don't know anymore. Oh yeah, look. Thank goodness they wrote it. It's 1 inch. I'm going to use the 1 incher because that just seems right. And I'm going to grab my color coordinating paper. I think I still like it. Sparkly pink and vintage navy blue polka dots is a little strange, but why not? So we're just gonna cut, 4 of these out so that we have these to use. So I'm gonna go ahead and just pop them out of this sheet. Literally pop them out. They pop a lot. And so you're gonna want 4 of those. And I have 2 that were previously cut. Ta-da, I'm gonna go ahead and add those to the pile. I'm gonna close this guy back up, save a little space. I'm gonna scoot this over out of the way. And here we go, have these. I've never inked these up before, but I'm curious what it would look like. But it seems like if I ink everything else, may as well ink these too. So I'm at least gonna do the 2 that go on the top. I don't even know if you can tell. I doubt this is necessary. They're so sparkly that I doubt it makes any real difference at all. But I don't know. Done anyway, just in case. Okay, so next we want to cut some holes in the centers of these. I'm gonna sort of measure just because this is something I'm not particularly good at. Volume and scale is tough for me. So I know it would be about the 1/2 inch mark. Actually, I have a better ruler for this, but you know what? Once again, we're just gonna go with close enough. So let's go with somewhere right around there. It's enough of a visual that I can sort of see what I'm trying to do. And honestly, I don't think the ruler's making any difference. Just gonna do our best. Okay, and then this guy is so small. It's really frustrating, but I also happen to have a crocodile that has the larger 1/4 inch hole. I think this is an 1/8 of an inch. But for this purpose, because I'm putting a brad through there anyway, it's... Okay, so now we want to finish up our policy closure. So we're going to take the circles, and I stacked 2 together. And I'm just going to punch a hole in the center. Now for the other 2. Great. So from here, we can go ahead and prepare our policy closure envelope by attaching these on the front. And you can decide, based on the size of yours, what looks best, but it's very easy to flip around. But if you're gonna add any pockets or focal points, it's a good idea to think about whether you'd like the larger section on top or bottom if you've made yours unevenly, as I have. So in my case, I'd like the larger flap to be up top, smaller flap on the bottom. So I'm just going to go ahead and kind of center these on in a way that I think looks nice. I'm going to poke a hole and then use one of these brads to attach it. So to make that a little bit easier, I'm just going to, kind of eyeball it, in which case, just go ahead and add it wherever you can. I'm gonna get a longer hole punch so that I can put mine a little bit further up. If you don't have a larger hole punch, you can just put it, a little closer, but I do happen to have one, so I'm gonna go ahead and make use of it. And I'm gonna make a 1/8 inch hole using my longer reach hole punch here. So I'm just gonna line these up again. And I'm really just kind of, eyeballing it. Where do I think it looks good? That looks great to me. Gonna mark it with a pencil. Do my best to line it up. And then punch that hole. So from there, I can do the same on the bottom. That looks good, just about like that. Just gonna mark it with a pencil to just make it a bit easier. Actually what I should do is use a ruler so I can keep them somewhat straight. I have definitely been winging it this entire time, but occasionally some measurements are nice just to help it line up if that's something that you'd like to do. So I've got this one here, which means I would like this one to be right about here. Great. So now all the holes are punched. Next, we're gonna add these brads. I'm gonna just check and see which one I think looks better. I like the white because it matches the polka dots. But it really kind of depends on whether it works with this. So let's have a look. Would it be too big? It's quite large, but it doesn't look terrible. Let's just try these to see if I like these any better. These are very small. Doesn't look bad. I kind of like the white better. So I'm gonna go ahead and go with that. Of course, if you just wanted to change the color, you could always use paint markers. So if I wanted to use the really small ones, I could. And I could just, use something like a Posca paint pen or paint it with actual acrylic paint. But in my case, I'm just going to go ahead and use the white ones. So I'm going to stack these up, pop a brad through, and then bend back the little arms to hold the brad in place. Easy peasy lemon squeezy, as they say. And there we go. So if I decide I want to swap those out later, it's just as simple as peeling back those little bits of the brads and then off we go. But I'm happy with that. So next I'm going to work on the back pockets, and I'd like a way to store my little tickets and other ephemera on the back. I think to just carry the theme, I'm going to stick with that pink paper, or I also have some navy, so it's hard to say, but maybe even white, because then I could decorate them, which would be really fun too. Yeah, it's a tricky one. I think it's really up to your personal style and taste. So at this point, I'm just going to make a decision on what I want my pockets to look like. And then next up, we will cut out those pockets, add some tabs, and affix those to the back, so I'll be right back. Okay, so I have settled on some pink polka dot printed vellum, just because I think it would look really cute. And I like the idea of the pockets being translucent so that I can see what's in them. So to cut these out, I'm just going to kind of roughly measure about how tall I'd like them to be, how much space I'd like them to take up, and essentially just make some small pockets. So I'm gonna go ahead and start by cutting these to the right width. So to do that and make it super simple, I'm just gonna go ahead and trim it like this. Okay, so then we just want to go ahead and arrange these on the back the way that we'd like. I think I'll have one here at the bottom. I'll have one here. And then just kind of a very tiny belly band / tuck spot up here. And so I'll go ahead and put those on. I'm gonna use double-sided tape just because I think it's a little bit easier for these, but you can use, you know, glue or whatever you have on hand that works best for you to attach. And I always like to cut out like a little bit of a semicircle just to make it a little easier to access what's inside. So I've got my trusty 1-inch punch. Again, I'm just gonna sort of eyeball it, put it about halfway through the circle, and then punch in the center-ish area. I find it just makes it easier to grab things from inside the pockets. But if you don't have a hole punch, you can just cut a simple notch or leave it straight across if that's your preference. And we'll go ahead and add these on. And then just sort of in keeping with the theme, you know, I'll go around the edges just to keep it sort of consistent. You know, again, everything does not have to be inked up. It's just purely personal preference. It's really about consistency, and I just like that it looks a little bit more intentional or finished as if it is, in fact, vintage. So I'm just going to go ahead and add my double-sided tape up to the corners. Will be able to see the tape. There are ways to do it so that the tape remains invisible. You can wrap it around and then do a little bit of a hidden pocket, but it does not bother me enough to do that here. That is certainly an option if having the tape visible is a concern. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and place this first pocket, and then I'll do the rest. If you're having trouble peeling off the back of your double-sided tape, I find tweezers to be the best way to grab it. And then you can also use an X-Acto knife as well, if you'd like. So make sure you've got the setup. Again, I want the larger flap on top here, so I'm gonna just flip it over directly and then start lining my pockets up and placing them just above the fold, double checking the edges. Go ahead and press that down, and yeah, you can see a little bit of the adhesive, but it is not enough that I am concerned about it. It's barely visible, and it's a junk journal, so we're really not seeking perfection here. And again, this is removable, so you know, if you don't like it, take it out, put it in a different journal. Start over, do whatever makes you happy. It's your journal, and you get to decide, which is what I think makes these so fun. And I'm sure there are more efficient ways to measure out and cut your tape, but I'm definitely winging it and working on the fly today. So hopefully you're embracing the wabi-sabi of embracing imperfections in this journal along with me. If not, good for you. I'd love to see the precision that you do. If you have any tips or recommendations, I am all ears. Some days I feel ready to be more precise. This is not one of those days. Okay, so I think I'm just gonna scoot it up just a little bit. Actually, I think it's a little easier to place this way because I have tape on those 3 sides. And then I'm happy with it, just like that. So just press it down. And then this last little piece, which is gonna function a bit like a belly band, we will just put tape on 2 sides, not the bottom. If you wanted to make it into a 3rd really tiny pocket for some cute little ephemera, certainly big enough to hold, you know, my faux tickets or other items, just add a 3rd piece at the bottom. But in my case, I think it would be fun to have a belly band. So if I have taller items that are bigger than that pocket, this can also be a way to help hold them in place. Or I could simply, you know, add to this belly band and treat it, you know, like you would any other belly band, giving you a 3rd sort of storage option. All personal preference. What you think you would get the most use and enjoyment out of. I'm just gonna place this last piece right about there. So there we go. All done. We have some extra storage. And the last step is really to add a closure. You can use twine, you can use ribbon. In this case, I have some embroidery floss that was given to me that has not yet been used. So I'm just gonna measure it about that length. I think is more than sufficient. We'll see if that's true. And then you just kind of grab it and wind it around the top. And then you can wind it around the bottom to close. And there she is, she's all done. So in my case, I'm gonna go ahead and just double check it, sliding it over the pocket. So I'm gonna go ahead and unclip this, add it on as if this is my page. Go ahead and close it up. And then take my little faux tickets here, and I'm just gonna tuck them inside. I wish I had some genuine tickets, but sadly I do not, so we're gonna make these work. I'm grateful that I had access to these digital print tickets that I could use so that I could meet the prompt, and they're just super cute tucked in here. I really like these. So I have 4. I'm gonna go ahead and tuck all 4 in, and what's nice is they're, you know, a thicker premium copy paper, and so they're white on the back, which means I can use them as journaling spots. So I could, you know, write these as little gratitude areas or whatever I can think of that I would like to include. Oh, I have 5. Look at that. More treasure. So yeah, more writing space. So I could, you know, have a little to-do list, write how I'm feeling, what are my emotions, just add what I'm grateful for. And how fun is that? I think it's super cute. I love that you can remove this. I can continue to, you know, move these around, stuff little fun pieces in here. So if I wanted to use this as a belly band pocket for some of the taller ones, that's how it would work. So it just kind of gives a little extra security to anything that's tall that you want to make sure doesn't fall out of your journal as you're carrying it around. But for now, that's it. Tickets, done. Policy envelope, belly band, done. Super easy, super cute. I hope you liked making this as much as I did. And I'm really excited to see what everybody else does with theirs. I may add some pretty decorations onto mine later. I haven't decided. I have these lovely ladies. I've got words. I have stickers. Who knows where this will end up. But for today, I think we'll call this one done. So thanks for watching. I hope this was helpful, and would love to see what you make. So please feel free to drop a link to your videos, your Instagram, your website in the comments, and let me know what you think. Thanks so much and have a great day.